energy here. It's too early in the morning. It shouldn't be. So thank you everyone for coming. I'm quite happy to be here, not only because I like UbuCons, but also I love Nepal. It's not my first time, and I'm sure not the last one. But today we'll talk about your careers and how you can end up having a job in AI. Let's see. Does it work? So why AI? Well, of course, we all use ChatGPT, we watch the news, and someone was telling me yesterday, hey Andrea, it's actually overwhelming. And that's right. But beyond that, there are more than 200,000 jobs, or there were, at the beginning of the year in the AI space on Glassdoor. From junior to senior, from very technical roles to quite commercial ones, you can find everything. And it's great. But still, how do you get one of these jobs? There are many, but also there's a lot of competition. It became an attractive field for everyone. Before we get into that, okay, I figured out how to use it. Before we get into that, maybe I should tell you a bit about myself. I quite intentionally didn't introduce myself. So I'm Andrea. I work with Canonical, and for over 3 years now, I've been the AIML product manager. But that's not what everyone expected me to do, actually. Where I come from, Romania, it's not so different than Nepal. And in reality, if you want to have a good job, you have 3 clear options in life. You can be a doctor, but you need to study for 10, 12 years. It's not so exciting. You can be an engineer, but there are not so many women who go for engineering even nowadays. Or you can be a priest. You can imagine, I could not be a priest. So that was crossed from the beginning. I had 2 options. And my mom said, Andrea, you would rather be a doctor because you're a woman. And I said, Mom, 12 years of school? After high school? No thanks, I'm going to be an engineer. And that's what I've done. I've studied engineering. And if you look at my career, I was not meant to work in the AIML space. I started as a telco engineer. And in all honesty, I didn't like it. I said, well, this environment, this industry is quite slow moving, and there is a lot of data. So luckily, my manager back then said, why don't you try to do something with all this data that we collect? You figure it out, Andrea. Machine learning 10, 12 years ago was not so exciting and not so interesting. Actually, in Romania, it was not even called machine learning. It was play with the data. And that's how I became a data engineer in the telco industry. And I enjoyed it for a while. But I was curious, what about other industries? Do they use data? Do they have data? What's going on there? And I started doing consultancy, especially for the retail industry. And that was interesting. They have a lot of data and a lot of customer behavior that you can look at. In reality, you can understand a lot about people, but also you can start questioning some things. Why is the chocolate, the not so good chocolate, placed at the level of our eyes? They were all things that I've learned before I became a data scientist in Canonical. That's how I joined the company. I was playing with marketing and sales data back then, and I really, really enjoyed it. But there was one thing that bothered me, the tooling. There was no Kubeflow back then. And if you don't know what Kubeflow is, I'm going to be very disappointed. Just Google it quickly. And there was no ML portfolio in Canonical. When I moved to a product manager role, and I built our product strategy, I played with the tools that we have. I thought on how to enable it for developers, like everyone in this room. And I continue doing it every day. And I love it. But still, I was supposed to be a telco engineer. And the reason why I share this, it's simply because you can choose your own journey. And you can shift as long as you stay curious. And maybe that's the first lesson that I would like you to have out of this session, that as long as you stay curious and you continue searching, you can easily find something that you like doing. But let's look at the AML space. What are the kind of jobs that you can have, you might wonder? Data scientists are famous. I think it's probably one of the most common job titles that you can find and you can have. They, in reality, build models with data. And that's where also machine learning engineers come in place. Oftentimes we get questions on, what's the main difference? Well, machine learning engineers often are a bit more technical, and also they engage with different types of data. They can do they can build, for example, or work on computer vision use cases. And that's just one example. You have researchers. And that's how I've done my bachelor thesis. It was on an AI research project. Back then, there were not so many. Nowadays, you can find more. And for me, it didn't work out, of course, because it was a lot of coding. And you'll quickly realize I quite like talking as well. There was no one to talk in a research lab. Just by myself, with an Ubuntu machine? No, thanks. You can become an AI product manager, as I am. But for doing that, I would strongly encourage all of you to have a bit of a technical background, build some machine learning models, interact with some machine learning tools, try to understand the industry, because at the end of the day, it's very difficult to be a product manager if you don't understand your audience, if you don't understand their pain points as well. You can become an AI architect and design systems with some of the tools that I know we're going to have talks about. I'm looking at one of my colleagues because he's going to talk about Spark. There's another talk about Postgres. And all those fall into how do you build an AI architecture? What are the tools that you need? And then furthermore, how do you put them together such that they make sense? You can be a data engineer and just optimize how data is streamed and how data is processed as well. And so just some of the options. In reality, you have plenty of them. It's not just 200,000 jobs in AI. It's 200,000 jobs that are split into different categories. And it's quite important to think of, what do I actually like, or what do I actually enjoy doing out of all of this? Do I have a lot of patience to look at data every other day? Or do I like to focus on computer vision use cases? Or do I actually like building architectures and I want to understand how to optimize it long term? So in reality, as you can see, there's more than one avenue. There's a technical avenue that people often think about, where you have machine learning engineers, you have data scientists, but there's also a commercial avenue that oftentimes is completely ignored. You can sell AI solutions. You can do enablement of AI solutions for other partners and customers, or what is called field engineering in Canonical, for example. Or you can do a bit of both, where product management often falls in place. I do need to know what Kubeflow does, but if I don't really talk the language of my customers, they will never sell. And if it doesn't sell, it's quite complicated to explain my manager why you should keep our product in the portfolio. So there's more than one avenue, and be honest with yourself. I know that everyone these days says, oh, you need to be an engineer, you need to write code in order to be successful at your career. But that's not true. You can be successful in any of these avenues as long as you like it, as long as you're curious and passionate about it. And maybe that's the second thing that I would like you to leave this room with. My mom told me to be a doctor. I didn't become a doctor. If someone tells you, become an engineer, tell them, maybe I don't like it. And that's fine as well. So how can you upskill is the second question. Nowadays, if you ask me, there are two types of avenues, and it was for a long time. You can become a specialist into a specific area, let's say data scientist. And you spend a lot of time into data science, you become a senior data scientist, a principal, a lead, and so on. Or on the horizontal, you become a generalist within one industry. Let's take telco as an example. You do data engineering, then you do data science, and then you do product management, but all in the telco space focused on AI. Because it means you have a very good overview of the industry, what are the challenges that the industry has, what are the new waves, or what are the successes that the industry had. What about 4G? What about 5G? What about 6G? If you've been working in the telco space for a while, it's easy to answer those questions. What about the difference between core and run? How does data change between these two? If you ask someone who never worked in the telco industry, they can be quite confused. What's the difference between core and run? However, if you've been working in the industry for a while, even if you've done different jobs, you will easily understand that, and then it will be quite easy to continue exploring on that front. And also, there's not right or wrong. It's not good to become a specialist or wrong to become a generalist. It generally depends on your personality. Do you have enough patience and resilience to go very deep into a topic? Or you're quite a curious person who loses interests very quickly? Because if that's the case, maybe a generalist role could fit you better, and that's okay as well. So how do we get there? Well, we all have our own journey. It's quite difficult to say, here's the recipe that you have to follow. But there are a few things that we can do, and we will talk about them. in reality, it's important to always try to do better and to do your best at your job. If you think you have a job and you cannot do your best anymore, just change something. If you work as a developer and you really struggle, whenever you start your day, you're like, oh, I have to work again. I have to fix again that bug. No, maybe fixing bugs is not for you. But at the same time, if you're curious and you read about the latest technologies in AI, maybe AI is really for you. Maybe writing code for AI is really for you. And it's good as well. But there's no recipe, even if I wish there was. Probably I would be further with my career nowadays. But let's focus on the technical track. And here are some of the jobs. I will not talk more about the commercial side, but if you do have questions after that, or if you would like to know what the product managers do, feel free to, you will find me at the Ubuntu or Canonical booth a bit later. But usually when it comes to the technical track, data scientists and data engineers get most of the attention. It's also, they have a lot of junior roles, and it's quite easy to transition between a data engineer and a data scientist. Machine learning engineers oftentimes have a deep technical understanding, but also they have a mathematics background. ML researchers, I have a lot of respect for them, but it requires a lot of patience. It's a trial and error process that is not just one model, one time, that has a lot of information over the internet. Oftentimes, you change the world, you shape an industry, and it takes time. MLOps engineers, they focus more on productizing machine learning. There was someone yesterday who was telling me, Andrea, I don't think there's any job with MLOps. I don't think MLOps is a thing. And I didn't agree, for the simple reason that the main difference between ML and MLOps is that MLOps focuses on productizing machine learning. And whereas a lot of us talk about machine learning, there are not that many companies in the world that are ready to take machine learning projects to production. The number is growing, and it's continuously growing, but not every company that you see out there uses machine learning in production, which also means that long-term there are going to be more MLOps engineers and a need for more MLOps engineers. And last but not least, there are AI architects. We already talked about what it means. And I think the main challenge here is how do you change or how do you optimize existing architectures for AI use cases? One of the most common challenges or use cases that I hear at my work is around AI sovereign clouds. There are a bunch of companies that build their private clouds back in the days. And nowadays, they want to make them usable for AI because they have GPUs that they would like to use. And they say, how do we do it? What is needed, actually? And anyone who can solve this challenge actually has a real chance in the industry. On one hand, you need more cloud-native applications. You need more applications such as MLflow, Spark, OpenSearch. But also, you need to look at the existing architecture underneath, if it can be used or not. But there is one more thing. Hard skills are not enough. Coding is not enough. Knowing how to represent the data is not enough. You do need to be able, first of all, to communicate, to tell a story about your data, about the projects that you're building. Because oftentimes, the stakeholders that you have in front of you, they do not have a machine learning background. There are people who have been trained to work in the telco space. So for years and years, for example, they focused on the new generation for telecommunications. Or you have people that worked in retail. So for years and years, they focused on optimizing their inventory in stores. And you come and say, actually, on Friday, it's better to sell beer than on Monday. There should be promotions on Fridays, not on Mondays for beers. And telling these stories and being able to communicate is very important. Stakeholder management, why does it matter? Well, in reality, in 8 out of 10 situations, nowadays, what we hear is, we want to do some machine learning in the company, and that's great. But at the same time, we don't really want to invest. We don't really want to allocate budgets. We don't really want to grow the team. And how do you convince your manager, the manager of your manager, that it actually matters is important. When I started as a product manager, I had a very small team of engineers. And it was not enough. We were not big enough to actually do everything that we wanted to do. So one of the biggest challenges was to convince my manager, our VP of engineering, that there's need for more people. And they said, no, we need more headcount. Why? Why do we need this? These 3 engineers do a great job. And knowing how to manage different people at different levels with different interests as well, because if it's a VP of engineering, he might care. If it's a VP of marketing, they will say, well, I care about my ads and my social media reach, not about another data scientist in this team. What's the value that a data scientist would bring me in a marketing team? And learning how to navigate these challenges and these questions is quite important as well. Domain knowledge. Well, it's good to be able to write code, to build data visualizations, and those can be taught as well. But how do you place them into an industry is important as well. And sometimes it comes from our own interests. My very first project was around traveling, around data science. And it's simply because I'm passionate about traveling. I would travel the world, if possible. And I still know a bunch of things and a bunch of secrets about it. But the other 2 industries that I also gave examples here are really telco and retail, because those are the industries that I worked with. And I would really encourage you not to say, I'm a data scientist, and that's enough, but rather say, I'm a data scientist, but I also know a bit about healthcare, or I enjoy reading about automotive. And data science applies in automotive in different ways. You can question that. You can try to build projects on your own. You can go on Kaggle and look for competitions that are related to the industry or to the topic that you're passionate about. It will not only help you gain domain knowledge, but it will also help you build a portfolio. And in reality, especially when you're junior and you're about to start your career, a portfolio speaks louder than just technical skills that you have in a resume as well. But let's look, how does it change as well? Because we often discuss with engineers, especially in my team, how do I grow my career? And nowadays, I've seen them going from graduates, actually, not even junior, but like extremely junior. They were fresh out of university, and most of them nowadays are somewhere at mid-level. In reality, the skills that are needed change. And it's good to consider all of them, but at the same time, what's your focus area when you just get started? As a junior data scientist, understanding data might be the most important thing. And you can write Python, or you can play in Python with data. You can build dashboards in Superset since it's open source. Or you can just take an Excel file and build pivot tables. Are you an Excel file expert? Well, I think all data engineers should be. And I think in reality, all data engineers, once in a while, they still go back to an Excel file. And that's OK. And then you should be able to build models. Not the most complex models, maybe, but those skills need to grow over time. And again, someone was asking me yesterday, they said, how do I know about all the possible algorithms that are available out there? Well, you don't need to know about all of them. You need to have some expertise, and then you need to be able to use the tools that you have available to find other options. How often do you go on Google for reading new things? Do you use Stack Overflow at all? Did you look at Kaggle, at the others, and their competitions? How did they win? What did they do to actually win one of those competitions? Do you ever go on Hugging Face? What's happening there? And it's the more you look at things, at some point you gain not just expertise, but also you learn how to search for things. And at least as a data scientist, when I started, that was the most important thing. Learn how to search for things. And then, as you grow into your career, you will learn how to optimize models, how to prioritize projects, how to actually make them work better. But start with the basics. And I know all engineers want perfection from day one. That's normal, but at the same time, you need to iterate. And iteration is better than just shooting for perfection from day one as well. I also wanted to say something because it's a domain that it's changing very quickly. Whoever said that, it was right. Long term, I do not believe that data scientists will be just data scientists. You will see, and that's one of the things that you already see. There's no standardized job title on the market. In reality, you find all sorts of job titles. You find applied AI engineer, ML engineer, data scientist, data expert. And oftentimes, if you read the job descriptions, they're all the same. And that is fine as well. But keep in mind that long term, they're going to change, and you should think of, where do I actually want to go? Do I want to specialize on the horizontal and be a generalist, or do I want to specialize into one specific area, and what's that area? Answer those questions for yourself. So how do you get a job? Well, learn how to code. I think that's basic. You've had plenty of talks before me, and you're going to have plenty of talks after me on how to code and how to write code. Also understand the problem. Whenever there's a data science project, whenever there's an ML opportunity, there is a problem behind. No one wants to build models for the sake of building models. That company, that team, has a problem. They don't understand when their customers are going to renew their project. They do not understand how many pieces of chocolate they need into the fridge for a month. There must be a problem. And if you want to be a successful data scientist, for example, you should always understand the problem. What's the problem that you're solving? In simple words. And once in a while, I do this with my engineering team. I tell them, what's the problem that we're solving? Why do you do this? If they don't know why, it means I failed at my job because I didn't express it right. But also, they didn't ask it. So we go back to basics. We ask again. We try to find the answers. Gain industry knowledge. It should be an industry that you think you would like to work on, an industry that you're passionate about. But don't just say, I know how to write code and how to build models. That's enough. It won't be. Build a portfolio of projects. And in order to build a portfolio, you can build your own projects. You can go on Kaggle. There are plenty of competitions, and it's quite easy. You can go on Hugging Face. Think of the problems that your community has and how you could solve them. One project that it's very close to my heart is, I come from the middle of nowhere in Romania. And at some point, my mom was telling me how the emergency system has no data knowledge. They still entered everything manually, and I said, Mom, but that's impossible. Like, how can you? It's 2020. It was 2021. And she said, Andrea, that's what we do. Leave me alone. I anyway don't understand what you do at your job. And I said, no, Mom, no. We're going to change this. Can you give me a sample of the data? And I ended up building some dashboards for the emergency department. She shared them with her manager. And she said, Andrea, you need to come to explain to him what you've done. I said, no. If you don't understand the dashboard, it means I've done something wrong. If you cannot talk about the dashboard, it means I'm not really doing my job. She did that, and nowadays they still use those dashboards. We build a bunch of models in order to predict the number of emergencies that they're going to have in a month. And it's part of my portfolio. It's not my job. No one paid me for that. But I quite enjoy doing it because I find happiness in helping my own community. Have career goals. And I don't think we talk enough about it. In Romania, for example, there is no career orientation session either. But you cannot just walk with no direction, expecting that you'll get somewhere. Probably you will get somewhere, but you cannot really measure it. Is it where I want it to be? Do I want to go further? Do I want to stay here? Do I want to go left or right? It's kind of the same with career. Think of what do you want to achieve. And don't get too stuck into those goals, but also don't just work every day expecting that a miracle will happen, then your manager will say, I think you should be promoted today. Or, oh, I think you should do something new. And also do it with a passion. I think passion is underrated, but if you like what you do, it's going to be very easy. If you don't like what you do, you might end up frustrated, a bit unhappy. So I would really encourage you to find what you like doing and continue doing it. So how do you get a job? It's quite easy. Identify your area of expertise, and at the same time, develop some of the technical skills. Define your long-term goals and build a portfolio. Build your resume, and look at jobs that are suitable for you and your level of experience. Apply, and most importantly, prepare for interviews. Don't just show up there thinking that they're going to hire you, because they won't. You'll actually have questions and expectations. Know what the company does. Think of some of the problems that they have, and help them out. Ask simple questions as well for yourself. What do I like doing? What I'm naturally good at? What makes me feel fulfilled, or what would I like to learn in the upcoming years? Do you want to be a data scientist for a lifetime, or are there other things that you would like to learn and explore? My very first manager told me that the younger I am, the easier it's going to be to change, because the moment I get older, I'm going to look for stability. I didn't believe him back then. Some years in, I wish I was braver when I was younger. It's also a journey. Continue exploring new opportunities. Don't be afraid of change. And stay curious. Stay curious about your domain, but also about things outside your domain, because you do not know when it might help you. And also learn as well as share further. I'm always happy when I see people who are curious and they want to learn. But I'm even happier when I see others sharing from their own experiences and trying to teach others as well. And no job is a final destination. You can always learn, change jobs, and grow. And if you want to have questions, I'm not sure if we have time. I think we have a little bit of time, but also I will be at the Canonical booth all day long for any AI question. Thank you.